sessions with Domino, and I don't know where he is. Great, all you.
All right. You're awesome. You're awesome. Oh, you're awesome. You're so awesome. You are awesome. You're awesome. You're awesome. You're awesome. You're awesome. All right, so that's how like people will come in and do presentations, but that's not me. That's not me. This is about like what is awesome, and what I want everybody to get out of this is doing a little self-analysis and figuring out what you think is awesome so that you can bring that to your chapter and your trustees. So there, who is like a fan of like 80s movies? Who's seen Fast Times at Ridgemont High? Everybody? So some of you guys in here, it's going to be, I'm going to set the story up for you here. At the end of Fast Times at Ridgemont High, there's this little character called Jeff Spicoli. Okay, so Spicoli was played by a little-known actor. Does anybody know who that was? Sean Penn. Probably his greatest role ever. Right? Comes into a convenience store, and behind the counter is Brad Hamilton, who was Judge Reinhold, and they went to high school. And he's like, "Hey, I know you," and orders like a coffee, pays for some stuff, says, "Can I use your bathroom?" He didn't say it in that voice. "Oh, can I use your bathroom?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure." So he goes to the bathroom. While he's in the bathroom, a robber comes in. The robber comes in, and he spray paints the camera immediately when he walks in the door, pulls out a gun, he's like, "Give me your money." And Brad, Judge Reinhold, is like, "Okay," trying to go in the cash register. He said, No, in the safe behind the chips. I've been casing this place." So he's trying to open the safe, and Judge Reinhold is kind of scatterbrained. He's like, "Quicker, quicker." He's like, "I'm trying my hardest, dude, I'm trying my hardest." That time, reappears Spicoli. And Spicoli walks in, and it distracts the gunman just long enough that Judge Reinhold grabs some coffee, throws it in his face. The guy is scalded. He jumps over the counter, points at him, and is just like, "I got you, motherfucker, I got you." And you know what Spicoli says? "Awesome." Totally awesome. Almost last line of a very famous movie. That's more me. Observant, watching this stuff.
Holding the gun.
Well, taking out the criminal, risking yourself, that kind of thing, But and then the last lines are, "Way to go, Hamilton." But that's another thing. So here's how I do it. And I recently came out to my chapter, the other trustees, on how I look at the projects that come in. And so what I'd like for you guys to do is think about what's awesome is, so that you can be open with your other trustees so they kind of know what they're getting out of you when you guys are collectively looking at projects. On the flip side, it also works because it kind of tunes your mind into when you hear somebody talking about, "Oh, I'd always like to do this," or "I'd always like to do that," or something. You're like, "Oh, I happen to be a trustee on this foundation." And you can submit and get $1,000. So it kind of tunes you in both ways to kind of do it introspective. So I do it with ACE, the acronym ACE. So it's really simple for me. And the A in ACE stands for adventure. So I'm an adventurist, and I like to travel around the world and do some kind of offbeat adventures. And so I like things that have this sort of adventure quality to them. Now, adventure means different things to different people. For some of you, this might be the adventure of a lifetime, coming here to this. I don't know. Some of you, it might be going and living off the land for a month, off the grid. Who knows? But it means something different to everyone. For me, if I think it has adventure to it, it automatically gets checked. The second one is C. So it's ACE. That's creativity. Now that creativity is a pretty broad word, and a lot of organizations use that. A lot of individuals use that, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you're a designer. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're an artist. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you actually create anything. It runs the gamut from innovation to stuff. But if I can check off that I think it's creative, then that gives it 2. ups for me on that project. The last is the E, and the E is, in general for me as a person, it's entrepreneur. So if it's entrepreneurial, then I really like that if they can take the project. But in this case, in the Awesome Foundation case, I use the E as eclectic. If it's this really eclectic thing, you know, if it's this cool thing, if it passes all three of those, then I automatically put that project over in a pile. It's a yes, not necessarily a vote, but it's one that I'll relook at. But if any of the other projects don't have that, I don't waste my time looking at them. If I cannot get all three of those in there. And so I just came out and told my other trustees, this is how I look at the projects. And it got them talking more about what they look at for projects. And that way you kind of know who you're sitting down at the table with when you guys go in. Here's a project that the only one I'm going to really show you guys today that we funded. Now, who's been on the Raleigh subway station? No? Yeah, because there's not one. There's not one. What there is this guy had lived in some of the places that you guys live that have subways, and he had moved back to Raleigh. And he's like, you know what, we're probably never going to get one, but I'm going to make it look like this one. So he pitched the project to do this subway map. Now, I'm not going to play the video, but this is actually what the map looks like. That looks like a legitimate subway system that is out there, and it's a brilliant idea. And you can go in people's offices, like you can hear and you see this subway map. You're like, Raleigh's got a subway system? And really, was just he was already a designer. It was just the printing. But he can make money off this stuff. This thing can last forever. It can be an art piece. They've used it in all kinds of ways. I'm going to get either myself or an intern, or if we ever have the Awesome Summit in Raleigh, there will be some kind of treasure hunter scavenger hunt based on this subway system. So we may see this again at some point. But I just think that is like one of the coolest ideas that somebody could have had that fit all of my criteria. Last before we leave, I want everybody to pull out their phone. If you have a LinkedIn app, open LinkedIn. This goes back to something Molly said. Open your LinkedIn.
I can remember password.
It's not like at some point, leave your LinkedIn open. So open your LinkedIn. Down at the bottom, there are this little icon that has people on it. Push on that icon, people. And then up at the top, you'll see right in the middle, it says find nearby. And probably all of yours says off. Turn it on right now. Just tap on it. And you'll start seeing all of us appear on there, because we're all in this room together. We're opening it up. And then all you got to do is just click on people. And now you are all connected. Woo, there you are, Theresa. Hey, so you all just popped up. So now you can just sit there and start hitting those things, and we'll all be connected. All right? So, I'm going to end on that, and may the 4th be with you.
Next up, Women in Velvet. Let me figure out how computers work. So excited for y'all to watch me do this. In the interest of time, let's just go through the website version. Cool. And then if you just want to scroll down to the next slide.
I'm Lucineh. I am from India, first time here. Very, very excited to be here. Actually, my presentation is going to be a little bit more informational. The first one, the Domino presented was very cool, energetic, but this one is a little bit more introductory.
Can you be louder, please?
Who we are. Oh, I'm sorry.
Is there a mic?
I am not the person to figure out how the microphone works. Great. Thanks.
Initially, the idea was to actually present here whatever happened a year ago, which was the Velvet Revolution, and lots of women were involved in the Velvet Revolution. But actually, I'm kind of going to go through in and out of that subject and then present Armenia as well and a little bit of historic introduction as well. So I think we'll be having fun. So, as you know, the Awesome Foundation has lots of representations all throughout the world, and if this were a PowerPoint presentation, you would see Armenian dots just circling. So Armenia is right there. The idea is to show that we're right there. Tiny dots. And of course, we're surrounded by tiny dots. All of those dots are very, very important. So today I'm going to just talk about one important dot that's important to me, which is Armenia. So Armenia is an ancient country where, a little bit of historic information, we're the first country to accept Christianity as state religion in the world. That's basically even before the Romans did. Armenia's capital is Yerevan, the world's oldest continuously populated city. It's about 28 years older than Rome. Okay. We were talking about Armenia. So lots of interesting. Let's do that. Okay. So historically, I mean, we have a very ancient language as well. Armenian, a totally separate language branch in the Indo-European languages. We have the Germanic, the Romanic languages, and then there's Armenian. So we have a very old, from 5th century also. So the alphabet also, which is on the right side. So it's very exciting. By this presentation, I think I'm going to recruit all of you guys to start traveling to Armenia. I know that. So lots of awesome things actually have been happening in Armenia for years. So we kind of could be considered as really solid members of current Awesome Foundation. For example, the ATM machine was invented by an Armenian. The MRI machine, the color of the dollar bill, that's unique and you can't really copy it. That's also copyrighted and invented by an Armenian. And of course we have some famous Armenians like Cher, and not sure whether you'll take this, but Kim Kardashian as well. Alex and Ani, the jewelry, she's I think supposed to be the world's richest woman entrepreneur at this point. So quite exciting. Exciting Armenians. But of course we're going to talk about women at this point. Oh, let me go back a little bit more about the awesome stuff. Armenia, about 10 years ago, that we discovered, not we, the World Scientific Forum, discovered the world's oldest wine-making production. So we have 6,100-year-old wines actually present in the vessels, as well as 5,500-year-old shoe. So basically, and something that kind of looked like a skirt. So we have the haute couture and we have the wine. So we're fine. You can come here. So another awesome thing that happened in Armenia a year ago was the Velvet Revolution. I don't know whether you have heard about it, but it was one of the most incredible events that we consider that happened in Armenia, because it kind of was like an ad hoc, very spontaneous thing. Of course, we had our prime minister, who's our current prime minister, basically overthrowing the 25-year-old regime. But it happened so naturally, and it just had like little outbursts of dots, important dots happening all around the country. So we're kind of proud of that awesome event happening, very peaceful. That's why it's called Velvet. So today's presentation that I'm going to give, of course we have other very cool, awesome projects that we're doing with Awesome Foundation, but maybe a little bit on the projects that women have done. But before that, this is our prime minister, well, current prime minister and his wife walking for like months and then basically gathering them, and then they're there now. She's actually a very active philanthropist. She was a journalist. She is still a journalist. So we have educational, we have news coverage, we have social impact, we have environment. All of these women basically were very, very active during the revolution. We have very active, so it was very peaceful, as I said. So we have mothers and kids, strollers, basically blocking the streets very comfortably. Oh, we have 1 minute. Okay, I'll run. So one of the projects that came out of basically revolution was the Mama Bali Ground. So the mothers are walking with their kids. This is for musculoskeletal, basically awareness, raising awareness of illnesses. So this is just one of the projects. And talking about Awesome Foundation, some numbers. We're 6-year-old, we have funded 60 projects, 121 trustees, and I just put down the number of male-female, basically, distribution so that you know it's growing. We have really cool projects that are happening right now. This is us, and we had last year we had a cake. A very cool project that we did is called Remarkable Science. We took basic physics experiments to the rural villages so that they would learn to love science rather than just see it in books and stuff. We call 25 plus years ago we had the devastating earthquake that basically killed about 25,000 people, and one of the villages that was built was basically looking very dilapidated. So one of the projects was coloring that whole village and bringing new life to us. Anti-plastic, we did flying Santas, kids with, actually this is a hospital, kids with cancer, just Santas decided to fly in from the roof and give them presents. We do pitch nights for students so that they're recruited. I know I'm finishing. We do Pecha Kucha nights, so basically it ensures our exposure more. Pitch nights every month, and I'm sure we've been talking about this. This is our cool team, and I invite you all to Armenia because we have really awesome music, classical, jazz, and we have really awesome fruit. And with this, I would like to do that.
I'm just gonna drink.
Cheers to the 10 years.
To the next person, and then we'll figure this out, okay? Sure. Cool. Steven. Give me 1
Okay, hello. Let's see if you can hear me. Let's see if you can understand me. That's the other one. So, this is going to work. Just trying to click it out here. clicker, sorry, 1 second. It just needs to be on. That might help. Okay, excellent. Here we go. I'll try and stay in front of the microphone as well. So, my name's Stephen. I'm a trustee of Awesome Glasgow. And we've been going for, what, 2 years now? So, Awesome Glasgow, as you can see, that's our kind of stylised fonting at the bottom. We'll talk about that a little later on. Let's see if this works. This is going to be interesting. Okay, so here we are, Chicago, assuming I've done Google Maps properly. We zoom out and spin the world round. We zoom in Scotland so you can see exactly where we are. That's Glasgow, the city centre, mostly there, just in the area. By comparison, nowhere near Chicago. So Scotland, it's the flag of Scotland there. It's typically wet and windy. These past few days in Chicago, it's felt like home, you know, but not in a good way, because I wanted sunshine and proper weather when I turned up here. It's home to 5.5 million people in Scotland. Our national flower is the thistle. Our national animal is a unicorn. I am not kidding on, it actually is a unicorn, our national animal. We have many mythical creatures like the Loch Ness Monster. I've never seen it. You're welcome to come over and try and find it if it's even there. The mythical creatures, you'll know from Scotland. This is a haggis, a real one, so if anyone asks you to eat haggis, that's what it looks like. I'm only kidding, of course, because you don't really know what a haggis really is. I invite you to go to Wikipedia to find that one out. Famous Scottish people in the past, Mel Gibson's not Scottish, William Wallace absolutely was, Robert Burns with poetry, kind of celebrated worldwide, and unfortunately we also have some associations with certain individuals. The good thing that comes of that are the protests that we also engage in. So not to get too political about it, the Donald Trump motherfucker, I believe. We're known for kilts, castles and bagpipes, all of which encapsulated in one easy photo there. We wear kilts on special occasions, weddings, graduations and football games, or soccer for the Americans. That's me in the centre. Away days are a lot of fun. We gave the world Peter Pan, Sherlock Holmes, Harry Potter and golf. A couple of things that we're known for. Our parliament is kind of semi-autonomous, I don't know if that's the right term. We have some power, we don't have full power. You will probably know that we had an independence referendum a couple of years ago. It did not go the way I wanted it to go, sadly. It's a weird one. Scotland, I would say a lot of people want to be independent from the UK, but part of Europe. It might seem contradictory, but it's just our kind of feelings on the subject. So Glasgow, we are Glaswegian, shortened to Ouija. It is a little derogatory, but we don't mind it too much, is what we're called. There are 600,000 Ouijas in the city, 1.2 million in the urban area. Famous Ouijas in film and television include Hobbits, Doctor Who's, Harry Potter characters, Game of Thrones characters for anybody else, and X-Men. For music we have A.C.E. Yeah, we will take anyone who used to be Scottish or was born in Scotland, is actually Australian. We'll take them all, we'll own them as much as possible. Palantini, Mogwai, and for anyone else, what the hell, churches is a thing? Yeah! We went saw churches. Yeah, we were astounded by that anyone knew who churches were.
They played here on Thursday.
Yeah.
They were in Chicago on Thursday night.
Yeah.
Sorry?
They were in Chicago on Thursday night.
Yeah, and they've been everywhere, and I was amazed to see how many people were kind of blowing up over them. So, well done for liking churches. Science and technology, we have various people. I've got to remind myself who the old images actually are of. We have Joseph Lister, who invented antiseptic. James Watt, who basically helped with the Industrial Revolution. From architecture and design, this was harking back to the font, which is on my t-shirt. I'm going to take it off right now. But we have Charles Rennie Mackintosh, who just recently got a statue. That's why it's a rubbish photo, but it's a new statue of Charles Rennie Mackintosh, who is known throughout the world to certain people for architecture and design. We're very proud of him in Glasgow. And that is actually his font styling. So if you recognise that at all, that's where it comes from. History, Glasgow was founded a couple of centuries ago nearly, I think. As banks of the River Clyde, there's been settlements there for 1,500 years, I think. The university dates back to 1452, if I'm correct on that one. Again, back check me if you want. We're built on things like tobacco, kind of movements of tobacco around the world, which probably isn't the best thing when you start looking into how that was done. But we managed to turn the former residences of these tobacco laws into modern art museums and other things, so you can repurpose this for good in the end. Shipbuilding was an important part of our past. It's not so these days, I would say. It's one of those things where we're just not used for that purpose anymore. Recently you'll know us for the Commonwealth Games, if you know what the Commonwealth Games are, and we also put traffic cones on top of our statues. It's not derogatory, it's just something you know, and honestly I mean it's something you know. This was in Amazon, I found it there. So what's good about Glasgow is we're the Dear Green place. We've got more green areas than anywhere else in Europe. We like our slogans and stuff, we're friendly people. People make Glasgow as the main one. We've got architecture and music and design. We've got a subway system that's the easiest one in the world. It's 15 stops and it gives the benefit of a sub crawl. This was me last weekend taking a picture of the sub crawl. You go to every pub you can on the subway. It's good. We like our football, we like restaurants and food, and we are the gateway to the Highlands, just Loch Lomond, just at the top. The bad, it's the same as everyone else has really. We have sectarianism in Glasgow, which is Catholic Protestant in our area, which is not a good thing. We have food poverty, which is also not a good thing. We have homelessness, we have drug and alcohol problems, and our diet is renowned for being terrible. It's improving. We're also home to 56 of the 100 most deprived areas in Scotland. But that actually lends itself to some awesome opportunities. So when we're talking about the flamethrowers versus orphans, we've been doing more of the orphans in terms of stuff that is good for the city. We were established in 2017. We have trustees, not too many of which have actually left. We kept the majority of them, mixed bag of people. And we're pretty active in social media if you want to learn more about it. We've funded things like health and well-being. We've funded after-school groups to keep kids out of kind of drugs and violence and all that kind of stuff. We've done lots and lots of things that we're very proud of, and we hope to do more in the future. We are the Awesome Foundation in Glasgow, and you're welcome to come join us anytime. Thank you very much.
USB disk.
USB,
Oh, I see it now.
and that's the PowerPoint. No.
Forward.
Wait.
So Avi's going to hold up signs for time.
Perfect. All right. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool.
Well, my name is Renato. No? Oh.
More wine.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't touch it.
So my name is Renato. I'm from the Minas Gerais chapter in Brazil. Minas Gerais is a state, and it means general mines, because we have a lot of mines there. And I almost feel embarrassed to talk here, because that's not something awesome I'm going to present. It's something really sad, because with the mines, we also have a lot of mining waste dams. And in January, we had a terrible disaster. One of these dams collapsed and just flooded a lot of people and 300 kilometers of a river. So that's one of the pictures. It's something really, really heartbreaking. And we were shocked by it and just got some organizations together to see what we could do, to do crowdfunding, you know, put some money together. Just some information about what happened. 12 million cubic meters of mining toxic slime discovered. Well, one area that there were people there working. So we had 233 confirmed dead, and people missing. You know, we can't find the bodies. So it's really, really heartbreaking for all of us. And we did a campaign and raised some money for it. And then the next question is, okay, how do we follow up from that? And the idea is, well, maybe we could do the same way that Awesome Foundation does, which is just to, you know, get some trustees from the region as well and give away the money. So that's where we are at. We created a chapter, Brumadinho chapter. It's a small town, 25,000 people. And in the first 1 month, we gave some grants for emergency relief. So people doing psychological assistance and helping with donation and volunteering. After we got through some challenges. So one of the challenges, Darth Vader there, it's the prosecutor office. It came to us and said, wait, you know, we recommend that you give this money to the city hall. You shouldn't be doing that. Or they also recommended us to only do it with their overseeing. And we were like, oh, okay, we don't want to mess up with them. We don't have structure for that. But so it took like some time writing and engaging with them. Now this is clear. We will have to be oversaw by them, but at least we will be able to manage the resource. The other thing is, like, you know, what are the rules? We need to make it a little bit more, let's say, it's not like just like Awesome Foundation that we meet and say, oh, let's give to this one because it's cool, right? There is a lot of things going on there, a lot of local rivalries, a lot of politics, a lot of interest in the money. It's really, really like heavy. So we've been trying among the group also to sort things out off and work to this model. And this is the idea, you know, regeneration. That's the main goal. We want to eventually get to a point that the local community, they start owning this turnaround for them and really start engaging this money that we collected plus the money that they should be collecting among themselves, and we want to help them to bring more money and just get to this point that they say, okay, we're past this, we're able to rebuild, and so that's the new chapter. Thank you.
All right, and next up we have Ingrid. And you're going to use your computer? I am. Cool.
Alright. And go back to,
Oh, it's checked in advance of the 7 seconds.
and I thought I asked. I'm gonna ask for some help. Anybody get us out of this little quagmire? Oh, thank you so much. Sorry about that. Yeah.
Computers are rude.
Okay, so welcome to my lightning talk, Disability as Social Capital in Philanthropy, also known as the Final Frontier. My apologies for the Star Trek theme on May the 4th. Our awesome Disability Chapter's mission is to serve as disabled new funders who seek out awesome new disability-centered projects and boldly fund where not nearly enough funding has gone before. Our prime directives are, what did I do? Hold on. Okay, it's coming back. We say disability is awesome and no funding about us without us. I'm going to ask for more technical from somebody.
Sure, just want to advance it.
Over our first 2 years, our chapters received over 1,700 submissions and awarded $25,500 in grants to 26 projects in 6 countries. And we do believe this is awesome, and a lot of it is due to our deemed to be here. The money, though, is not the only measure for what we think makes disability-led, disability-centered funding awesome. Okay, money is pretty awesome. I'm sure our grantees would say, it's actually the money that's awesome. Our micro grants have meaning go beyond money because every micro grant that we make generates more social capital for disabled people by disabled people. And each micro grant demonstrates our power to fund and our power to attract funding, not in spite of our disability, but because of our disability identity. And we know, of course, that disabled people have always had worth, but now we're building for status. And that's what social capital is. Social capital is a thing because 1 in 4 people in the US have a disability. Maybe 3% of folks who are in philanthropy identify as disabled. And around only 3% of funding goes to disability-related work. And so what that means is we don't typically win the fight for funding. And why is that? Well, because when able funders hear the term disabled people, they still tend to associate us, people, with an object maybe that they fear, like a wheelchair. And as we all know, wheelchairs don't have social capital. Or they think funders think of us as disabled children who are pitiful and want nothing more than to be able children. And children, we remember, also lack social capital. So in other words, funders still understand disabled people through the script of the charity model. Philanthropy's own wealth of social capital has had the power to define the role of what being a disabled person is in our society. We're defined as being the recipients of charity. But the rise of the disability rights movement in the US through the late 60s, the 70s, 80s, and 90s specifically threw off the charity model. But even with the power of the protests and the Americans with Disabilities Act, Disabled people could flip the script in the courtrooms and in the legislatures, but still face the same tired ableism in philanthropy. And making philanthropy not only the final frontier of disability rights and inclusion, but also the most radical space on which to build our own social capital. It's the very space that once controlled us through the charity model. By being disabled funders and making all of the funding decisions, Awesome Foundation Disability Chapter trustees upend the historical relationship between philanthropy and disabled people. We become people with social capital who are recognized as contributors and decision makers. And I want to add as a note, of course, that there's absolutely nothing wrong with being a recipient or receiving a grant. We're all people who receive both. So you've now reached the final frontier in philanthropy. The Awesome Foundation Disability Chapter hopes that you will fund long and help others prosper.
And then next up is Erin Watson. Yeah.
Can y'all hear me in the back? I'm pretty loud. Sweet, okay, I'll just be loud then, and I don't have a PowerPoint, so we're gonna look at this. So I actually love that I'm going after Ingrid because I've worked my entire career in charities, and I think it's important to consider what do people think of when they think of a charity? What are charities really good at? How are charities achieving crucial impacts in society? And how could charities be more like the Awesome Foundation? So what can we learn from public charities? What can charities learn from us? So just to give you a little background on my career path, I have worked at a very large national nonprofit, a very small local nonprofit, and then kind of one of the larger nonprofits here in the Chicago area is where I am today. I started my career at YMCA of the USA, which a lot of people know dance for, which was the bane of my existence at the time, although we did once karaoke it, that was funny. So YMCA of the USA is a national organization, and they are largely focused on health, youth development, but they also have a social impact component of their mission. I'll talk a little bit more about that. Their budget last year was $131 million, and most of that was from what you would think of as dues, fees for service, private contributions. So like the money that you pay to go work out at the YMCA, that sort of thing, is where they're getting a lot of their funding. After 7 years working there in a variety of roles, I went to a local supportive housing nonprofit, which took women who had experienced homelessness and placed them in permanent supportive housing. So this isn't a shelter, this is an apartment, but an apartment where you're connected to the other resources that you really need to thrive. So that was a much, much smaller place with a very different funding structure. They get about $3 million a year, and more than half of it is from government grants, which in a governmental environment, like I don't know if you guys know anything about Illinois politics over the past few years, but hoo boy, it was a spicy time to try and get state funding, in that it didn't exist. So I left there and went to the Greater Chicago Food Depository, which is where I work today. We have a mouthful of a name, but we are Chicago's food bank, as well as for the entirety of Cook County. We're also about $100 million a year operating revenue, but local scope. And a lot of that is coming from major gifts from individuals and foundations. And I'm not really the person who's out there delivering the programs, taking the food off the truck, or being the social worker to women who have experienced homelessness or those sorts of things. But I do work with those people to tell their story both to the public and to funders. So I have a little bit of experience in learning what some of their pain points are in running a charity. And that also does mean that I'm squarely on the orphan side in my day job, which is part of why it's so fun to be part of the Awesome Foundation. So let's talk about what nonprofits tend to do really well. Partly by how nonprofits are structured under the tax code, they're really good at having specific, discrete, defined missions. Because you have to go to the IRS and say, I am doing this with the money people give me. Do not make me pay taxes on this money because I'm doing this thing that is a social good. Maybe the government should be doing it, probably so. But here we are in America. So nonprofits are pretty good at defining the space they're going to operate in, whether that's like a physical local space or a mission. And within that, they're also good at building communities of practice. This is a term that I got from Kevin, who works at Feeding America, the national network of food banks. And one thing that's great about having a national network is they can say, we know somebody who's doing what you're struggling to do. Let us put you in touch. Let us connect you with those resources. And so having things like those national networks where you can connect to other resources in other places, or other people who have historically had the struggles that you're having, is something that's really great about working in the nonprofit field, and something that we as Awesome could maybe learn from. Something else that is increasingly becoming the case for nonprofits is learning from and adapting to constituent needs. I talked to somebody at a conference from Baltimore Core, and they try to develop Baltimore entrepreneurship to build the economy in Baltimore, but what they realized is people who are good at running a local business aren't necessarily good at writing a grant. So instead of having them write up a grant application, they can make a video of what their business does, or they can do an in-person interview. So just one example. One other thing I want to talk about real quick is a book that I got really fired up about recently called Decolonizing Wealth, which really connects very well to what Ingrid was talking about who has had social capital and who has controlled the purse strings, and how do we put the purse strings in the control of people who have historically been seen as the recipients of charity, whether they're people with disabilities, people who have experienced homelessness, people of color, our trans and LGBTQ family, Native American people, the author of this book was really focused on. So having radical trust in those communities to make the right decisions for them with their money. And I'm out of time, so I'm going to go ahead and end it there, but I want to really invite all of you guys to find me throughout the weekend, because I get really geeked up about talking about nonprofit structure and how we can build the future of philanthropy in a way that really radically includes everyone and really builds the sort of world we all want to live in. So please find me and talk to me about that. Thank you for listening.
Next up we have Theresa. I'm also so glad y'all got to see the slides I make every day. Sorry. Alright. I just do consent. Yeah. I have email. What in the heck?
Hi guys, I'm Theresa and I'm from Sydney. Obviously not originally. I am from Northern Illinois. I am an Australian citizen now though. And I've been living in Sydney for 2 years and Melbourne for 6 years, and it's pronounced Melbourne, not Melbourne. That is in Florida. Right. Australians don't have the letter R. How many people have been to Australia? Oh my god, wow, okay, and how many to Sydney? Assuming the same number, yeah, why would you go all the way and not go to Sydney? So you've seen this is our iconic view. Where is Sydney, for those of you who haven't been? It is quite far down. Everybody thinks it's like way up, it's not. But it's very warm and tropical-ish. Australia, 24.6 million. Sydney has around the same size as Melbourne, it's just a little bit bigger. And in comparison, United States, a little bit more people than us at the bottom of the world. A little bit about Awesome Foundation Sydney. We have been around since 2011. We get about 9 applications a month, which I am now realizing is not a lot. The rest of you, so we have gotten less than 1,000 since we've started. We have given out $68,000, which is a lot. Something that we do on our application page on the website is to actually tell people, like we have a grant that we gave out a few months ago that was really good, and we asked them if it was okay to put it up in a link as an example of breaking down the budget really well. And since we've done that, the quality of our applications has gone way up. So take a look at our page, and if you want to borrow ours, feel free to get in touch and we can arrange that, or just use one of your other really good ones. This is our trustees. So we have people who are Vietnamese, lesbian, black, gay, Jewish, American. We did actually want to add a little bit of diversity, so we finally got a cisgendered white middle-aged man. So that was good. It is something else we do that some of you might not do is if one of us can't make it, we get somebody in our place to attend. Yeah, and that works really well because we're also spreading knowledge about it as well, about what the Awesome Foundation does, and getting those people on board for maybe they'll become future trustees. Some recent projects. So I've mentioned to some people we do tend to fund more of the flamethrower type things. We fund everything from theater to e-suits. It's really fun just seeing the diversity of applications that we get in. One cool thing that we did, we went out to dinner together for our December meeting, and each of us picked a grant that we had gifted in the prior 12 months, got in touch with them either over email or the phone, and heard about what they've used the money for if they have, and then reported back to everybody. So that was a really lovely way of connecting and circling back. So we do special events, which I know some of you do as well. Sydney has a thing called Vivid that happens in the winter as a way of trying to get more people active and more tourism happening. So we actually project things onto the Opera House. There's a series of talks, there's music, there's all kinds of cool stuff. So we've done a couple of things with that, and we do mega pitch nights. So if we don't receive enough good applications, we will not fund that month. We'll just hold the money. And I attended the mega grant night. We gave away $3,000 last year, and we're coming up to another one that we're putting together. That was last year. All the way to the bottom. A lot of fun. And this is what we're doing. It's coming up in a few short weeks, so you're all invited. More importantly, invite your friends in Sydney because we haven't sold a lot of tickets yet. It is a youth focus, so it doesn't have to be a project by youth, but it has to benefit them in some way. We have an MC who is, I think, late teens, early 20s, so it'll be quite a fun night, and that is the Museum of Contemporary Art, which is right on the harbor. Absolutely gorgeous. And here's where you can follow the Awesome Foundation and see you in Sydney.
All right, next, Erin Wyatt.
Well, I think I'm the last one on board, so we almost made it through the lightning talks. I want to talk a little bit about removing barriers to trustee participation in different chapters. I'm Erin Wyatt, and I am part of the Chicago chapter. So I first heard about the Awesome Foundation through a story on WBEZ, which is our local public radio outlet. And at that time, I was living where the A is, in Waukegan, Illinois, and Chicago Awesome Foundation meets in downtown Chicago at the B. And so I thought the Awesome Foundation sounded super awesome. And it was a kind of group that I wanted to be involved in. But at that time, commute, place, thinking about getting downtown Chicago on a weeknight just didn't seem feasible. So then fast forward a few years, and I moved to now A, where the purple is. And so now I'm closer to Chicago, and it becomes more feasible maybe to be part of this organization that I've been kind of following online and stalking what they were doing for the last couple of years. So I decided to reach out, checked out a meeting, really found it engaging and interesting, and I definitely figured out it was something that I wanted to be part of. So I joined the Chicago Awesome Foundation. And our meetings each month are at Spantry. I think I sneakily took this picture one time at one of our meetings. And so we meet on a monthly basis, like many of you do, and we actually physically meet, go through our votes, and talk about which grant we want to give that month. And the thing that really fills my bucket of personal inspiration is that then we do an interview with the last month's grantee and give them the envelope of $1,000, which is really a cool experience, but then to hear their story and what impact their project will have just kind of fills me up for the next month. So I love being there in person. And these are the current Chicago trustees, and they all have busy, interesting, really full lives, and realizing that sometimes there are obstacles for us for actually getting to the physical meeting, thinking about ways that we can participate without actually physically being there was something that I thought about, because even though I live at the A, I work at the Libertyville, so way up north. I still work way up there. So sometimes I get stuck at work and I can't make it, and then I get bummed out because I miss seeing my friends who are other trustees, and I miss my monthly dose of inspiration. So then we talked about ways that we could perhaps participate virtually, and so we started. There's now a Zoom option for the meeting, so if you can't make it one night, you can say, hey, I want to Zoom in tonight, and you can be there and be part and hear what's happening, participate in the discussion. I have to give over the fear of having my face in front of me on my computer screen for the hour that we're there. But it really has helped me participate even when I can't physically be there, where time or place or something else is an obstacle. And other trustees have taken advantage of this too, whether they're traveling or at work or sick kids or whatever, that they can participate too. So I really encourage all chapters to think about what are the ways that you can engage all of these people in your area that might not live really close to where you meet, that want to be part of the Awesome Foundation. Thank you.